Traditionally speaking, women and people of color have been precluded from engaging many of the systems of power in this country for decades. So it's not surprising that we see vestiges of that in the highest halls of power. This is a historic artifact of something we created as a government, as a community. Our political system, as always, has a lot of catching up to do.
You know, I've lived in other countries and I've seen that there is another way to do this. Like in so many other areas, we're suffering from a failure of imagination. I authored a recent investigation for Politico about whether more women are going to run for office after the Trump election and why more women haven't run so far.
I woke up on November 9th and I knew instantly that I had to do something.
I think it's so obvious to everyone that the system is broken.
Everybody hates Congress. If you look at the approval ratings of Congress, they're 10% and lower. But we re-elect our incumbents to Congress at rates above 90%.
We have created this polarized, choked up system.
I feel very demoralized by the level of sort of petty viciousness that they see.
One of the things that was so disheartening for me in this past election cycle was seeing the ways in which women were treated, discussed, dismissed, belittled.
There's energy. There's definitely women who are very upset.
There are more women who seem to be fired up.
What's actually going on? Yes, women are unusually politically active, so you'd think maybe that translates into more women considering running, but what we found was a consistent 15-point gender gap between men and women. There's definitely the potential for a movement, but I think it's really up to the political parties and to advocates and organizers to convert that energy into some kind of action.
The most important thing to electing women to office is actually making sure that they're asked. So recruitment is very important.
Right now, there just aren't enough women running.
The people that do the recruiting tend to be the party leaders, the party chairs. So that's a male-dominated field right now. Talking to the current chairs and other members of the party elite, would be helpful.
You look at the pressure points. I did always advocate for quotas within the Democratic National Committee.
So you have to get at it through targets for recruiting, putting women forward.
Just having it in the air creates the imperative to do something tangible.
I think that there are several things about maybe the electoral system that makes it difficult for new groups to get involved.
It's been expensive, it's been stressful.
Yes, for sure, it's the extreme vicious partisanship is turning off not just women, but men, and especially young people.
Politics is excluding to all but the people who have the most privilege, or the most flexibility, or the most political capital.
There is still an old boys network. It is alive and well.
So when you have one set of people that have had power, they tend to stay in power because they know the system, they have the connections. And when I have a body like the U.S. Congress that's mostly white and male, it's going to stay mostly white and male.
It would be good to have structural changes that would make it more likely that not only women, but other sort of outsiders who are more communally minded in their goals can win.
I think this ranked choice, multi-member district is the way to go.
Having ranked choice voting here in Tacoma Park really helps us to better the dialogue and the tone of our elections.
So even women might not choose as their first choice a woman candidate. But if they're given 3 choices, there's a very good chance there will be a diversity in those choices.
It is challenging being the only woman on the city council.
People come to the meetings with preconceived notions about who I am and what I stand for and what I plan to do.
I get more questions than my male colleagues about who's taking care of my children? You know, there's a lot of focus on recruiting and training women candidates, but I think we also forget about the support that's needed when you're an elected official.
If I were a single parent who had 2 jobs and no child care and no transportation, I'm actively excluded from the process.
Juggling all the different factors because of the pay, if you have children, if you have another job, it is difficult. This isn't just the responsibility of women to step up. It's also the responsibility of our male counterparts who are elected officials. What support is there for a newly elected person and a newly elected woman to really be successful?
You need diverse teams. That was always the reason that America was such a great experiment.
We do see that women bring what they would refer to as a different perspective to the policymaking process.
We have seen how during sequester, it was the women who got the government moving again.
When they were deciding on welfare reform, it was Republican women that pressured Republican men to include child support enforcement and more subsidies for child care in their welfare reform. And so the women were there to bring that perspective and educate colleagues.
What I see from people who, even if they have a different political persuasion, really do want to see more women and people of color in office.
We need an infrastructure for change.
For sure, structural reform is essential to this.
You know, I think the pressure points are what you have to look for. Those are your opportunities, your nudges that will change things.